Well, it's time to get started and to dive into the meat of this course. I want all of you to be sure and download and print the Private Lending Terms Glossary. If we're going to be diving into new content, you might be hearing words that you've never heard before, and I want to make sure you have the definitions in front of you at all times, just in case, so that way you don't get left behind in the course. In our next section, I'm going to cover the private lending concept as a whole. We're going to explore why there is such a demand for private lenders like you, and why banks today can't keep up with the demand for those loans. The major banks and the struggles that they've endured over the last half decade have created an amazing opportunity for you. So, let's explore that opportunity in greater detail. It is time for us to start diving into what being a private lender is all about. How many of you walked into a bank and seen an advertisement similar to this? This always kills me how people are willing to invest their money at the bank for a measly return on a CD, but also turn around and get a loan from that very same bank at a much higher interest rate. Don't they know that they're borrowing their own money? The real question is this: would you like to borrow money from a bank and pay the bank every month? Or would you like to lend money out like a bank and make a fixed return every month while having collateral backing up your investment? Of course, we all want to be the bank. Many of you had no idea that you could be the bank, that you could be the one making a great interest rate, that you could choose how much of a return you want to make, that you could choose only win-win loans. You're too accustomed to being on the other side of banking. You're used to being a borrower. You're used to borrowing money for home loans, car loans, student loans, and of course, credit cards. Well, no longer will that be you, because you're on your way to becoming the bank. Why should you want to become the bank? Well, banks are in a great position. They get to make their own choices on the types of loans that they want to entertain or not. If any particular loan doesn't quite meet the bank's lending criteria, then they simply say no thank you and move on to a more favorable lending opportunity. As a private lender, you too have the ability to choose for yourself which lending opportunities are right for you. This course will cover the basics on how to evaluate a potential lending opportunity, with the goal to always put yourself into a win-win scenario. Just like the big banks out there, you're going to entertain loans that provide you a sufficient amount of security or collateral to get your money back and potentially even make a profit if you don't pay back the loan. America's wealthiest investors have long been using private lending as a simple way to get even wealthier. Thanks to this course and self-directed IRAs, you too will be able to share in healthy returns and make money the same way that they do. There are never a shortage of potential borrowers out there, and there are a number of reasons why now is the perfect time to become a private lender. Due to the economic conditions over the last decade, the need for private money is at an all-time high. The demand for private money is strong in both the larger professional borrower realm as well as the smaller mom-and-pop borrowers. The recent mortgage and banking collapse has left traditional lending options, such as the big institutional banks like Wells Fargo and Chase, with extremely strict and conservative lending guidelines. Quite honestly, they have to be extremely conservative these days, because their previous loose lending practices have left them in a position where they can no longer afford to take chances. Those big banks are looking for sure things. Because the banks have so many delinquent loans sitting on their balance sheets awaiting foreclosure or short sales, the banks have been forced to tighten their lending standards, and this has made them reluctant to lend to anyone with less than picture-perfect credit. It is precisely the bank's reluctance to participate in this market that has created the attractive investment opportunity in short-term real estate loans. The fact that banks aren't lending to this market has created a supply-demand imbalance that doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the borrowers, but instead with the conditions of all those big banks' balance sheets. This has created a marketplace full of strong borrowers and good projects, but no bank to lend them money. There are many successful home builders and developers out there that, due to the real estate crash, have been left with blemishes on their credit. They still have the knowledge and wherewithal to get a project done, just not the squeaky clean credit that the banks would prefer, so banks don't want to lend to them. There are also tons of real estate investors and new mom-and-pop real estate investors who have solely gotten into real estate investing to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in real estate prices. The banks aren't lending them money either. This demand has created a market where private lenders are easily able to obtain borrowers willing to pay anywhere between 6 and 15% annual percentage rates. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking that no one would be willing to pay that type of interest when home loans are going for as low as 3 and 4% these days. But remember, we're not looking to become the bank on 30-year loans. We want to get involved with much shorter loans in the loan term range of 3 to 6 months. The shorter the loan term generally equals a higher interest rate that will make it worthwhile for the bank to lend the money. It is also important to realize that many of the borrowers are savvy real estate investors who are planning to make a very large return. Therefore, they're willing to pay for a quick and simple source of capital. These borrowers can often afford to pay those rates of return because their loan is going to make them a return of 20 to 50% return on their investment. Becoming a private lender is definitely an attractive investment strategy. And now that you know that you can be the bank, it's important that we start to teach you the basics of being a private lender. In our next section, we will cover the fundamentals of private lending and the basic parts of a mortgage loan.